for his last daily stream during this session. So I think, it was an accident, but it's kind of poetic, right? Where, I want to know a little bit more about you. And I think maybe there's a good amount of your hardcore fans, they know about you, but there's still a lot of people that don't know everything. So I have 735
Let's
questions
see
prepared.
what you have. Yeah. So, one last more time. Last. I can't speak. So we are going to stream here and on Henry's channel. So if you want to watch it from here, you can do so. But I think it would be better if you go over to Henry's channel, to give them the views.
Wow, that is so kind of you. Thank you, man. I didn't even ask for that, folks. He offered that. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, so we'll get started. Gadget, everyone, you guys know my face by now at Henry's. But listen, I'm here with a good friend of mine, someone I look up to, someone I appreciate his work ethic as well. It's not just his art, but the sort of lifestyle he's created for himself. And that's Samuel. I mean, you go by Samuel Streetlife on YouTube. You go by Lin Taro on Instagram. And you are one of the first people that I sort of came across on YouTube for street photography, that I started going down the rabbit hole, started learning from. I gotta ask you, where did your journey with street photography begin? Where did your love affair with street photography begin? When did you become hooked?
I think for like most of us, it didn't happen like overnight. I think it was... I have to go way back to university. I was studying communications design.
Yeah.
And I actually applied for university by showing them my photo portfolio. But they only consist of landscape photography or, travel, architecture, no people in it, maybe a few portraits. And then I had a photography teacher in university for 2 semesters. And he was a photojournalist. So he was showing us, all these photojournalists, and I've never seen them before. I knew that there were war photographers and journalists, but I didn't exactly look at their work. And then I think but he recommended, for example, War Photographer. It's an amazing documentary. And actually the first time seeing POV photography, like real-time photography.
Right.
And that was amazing. And then after that, I got hooked. I wanted to do photo stories, document everything I can, or do projects from start to finish, like a series. Yeah. And he always encouraged us, go out and have an idea in mind, and then we had to deliver him little photo stories, for example.
Yeah.
And his style was very wide, wide angle. And at that time, I was using a 50 on APS-C, so very tight. And then suddenly I see these wide-angle photos, and then I had to do that too. So that was the first into documentary photography. And then street, it's a long story, but long story short, street came out of the frustration of the reality that it's not easy to become a photojournalist, not anymore. So.
Right.
You have to invest a lot of your own money. Newspapers and magazines, they don't hire photographers. You cannot become a staff photographer easily. They go to stock sites, right?
Sites, yeah. So and some newspapers are just cutting off photographers and just hiring, freelance or, buying the images after. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was frustrating because I got into a very... big agency, a photo agency, but I never sold anything. And even though I had put a lot of work into it, going to all the events, trying to get the best photos, but it wasn't fun because I wanted to do my own projects. And then came the GR, the first APS-C Ricoh GR.
Yeah.
And with that camera, I knew that Daido Moriyama is using it, and so I was like, I can be Daido Moriyama now. So I started street at that time. It was probably around 2013, and but I was still not really taking it serious. I just was happy that I can take, the similar kind of photos that I would do in a more documentary style, but on the street.
Gotcha. So, you have a lot of fans that know you for your street photography, but I kind of want to go to those early steps. When you first started going out and taking pictures in the street, I don't know, maybe it's not the same for you, but for me, I know there was a little bit of nervousness and anxiousness and trying to get closer to people and, even finding a way, like, how do you tell your story in street photography? I think a lot of people can relate to this where, developing your eye. So what were sort of your early goals when you were going out? You had your Ricoh in your hand, the first version of it. What were you trying to do? What were you trying to capture, and how did you try to get better? Is that the version 1, by the way?
No, that's the 3, my current.
Okay. We're gonna talk about that too, though.
I have my old GR here, but unfortunately it's broken. The lens doesn't go in anymore. So.
Oh no.
But I used it for six or 7 years.
Wow.
But we're not here to talk about gear, right?
We will later.
Okay. So you were asking how to go out and capture a story?
Yeah, early on when you realize like you really want to get into street photography, this is something you want to explore. What were some of those goals early on? Like, how were you looking to develop your eye? What were you looking to capture? Like, what were the things that were kind of, I guess, motivating you?
I guess there's not a real story that you're trying to capture. I think it's impossible to know, what you end up with at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it's more the fun of being on the street and finding interesting things. And I think the more you do it, the more you enjoy just being out and observing, and then the stories will come to you, right? So you start to pay attention to things you never paid attention before, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you see new things, or you can go to one location and just stay there for 2 hours, and then you will see the place can change so quickly and easily.
Yeah.
So there are always possibilities, and for me, it's always the process is the most enjoyable part. If I can, I would like to always have, an amazing story in each frame, but that, of course, doesn't happen all the time. So for me, it's more the process about going out and seeing, what can I do, and sometimes when there are public events, protests or fairs, then I go out and know, I'm going to document this, and maybe there will be something happening that could be interesting for a single frame. But it's a similar approach to, documentary or photojournalism. You go out, you want to document something, but in street photography, you're not quite sure what yet. And
so you kind of go in with a little bit of an open mind. Early on, being open to the environment.
Yeah, and I want to be surprised. I don't want to see the same people all the time. I want to see something new, and that's probably why I can't really shoot in my hometown. I'm so used to, taking pictures when I travel, and of course it's always exciting. But ideally, you would find, great things everywhere. But
I guess since you brought it up, I gotta ask. Like, one of the things for me is that I find myself enjoying. Maybe enjoying is the wrong word, but more adventurous with street photography when I'm traveling. And when I'm in my home city of Toronto, I don't know what it is, but I kind of have to like build up to it or, actively try a little bit more being in hometown. Is that something that you faced or continue to face? And what do you think the result of that is?
Yeah, man, every day the same problem for me. I really love my city. I love my city. Hamburg is amazing, beautiful city, one of the most beautiful cities in Germany. But the thing is that I think in any city you can become bored after a while, even if, especially when you travel a lot. Then I think the problem is you stop appreciating where you live, and sometimes it needs something like going to a place that really sucks, a very boring place, or maybe you have less freedoms, and then coming back, you're like, oh, I'm glad I'm back. And I had this a few times, and I came back to Hamburg, and then I appreciated, how relaxed people are. I can give you a good example. Japan, for example. You've been to Tokyo, right? Yeah. Amazing, exciting city, never sleeps. You can shoot at night. But the big issue for me as a street photographer is I'm always looking at, human interactions, emotions. I want to see, humans being humans. But in Tokyo, sometimes it feels like, humans going to work and, don't really live
Right.
their life. And that's why you often see street photographers in Japan, trying to get really close to people and get some kind of emotion, right? I mean, if you watch the photo news the last 2 weeks or months, then you probably know who I mean.
Yeah.
But photographers like him, for example, they don't want to. They want to see more. They don't see emotions on the street. And for me here in Europe, London is a good example. France, Spain, Italy. People are so much more open to interact with other people, and you see, couples. They are, not super intimate on the street, but they hug each other, they kiss. Yeah, comfortable. And in Japan in public, people don't really hug each other.
Yeah.
They might hold hands, but you barely see someone, kissing his girlfriend, which is weird to us because it's normal for us. So whenever I'm in Japan, I feel a little bit frustrated after a while because people are too much focused on work and
Yeah. I got to ask you this question as well is, when you're kind of going into a scene, maybe I should paint a picture for everyone watching, is imagine Piccadilly Circus, because you were recently in London, I was recently in London. Imagine you're in Piccadilly Circus and you're kind of approaching a scene. What are you looking for? Like, what are the first things that you start to scan for before you actually start, taking pictures with your camera?
Piccadilly Circus. Yeah, I mean, there are many tourists, so it's what you get is just tourists hanging out, and I try to avoid like these busy hotspots, like tourist places.
Fair enough,
But at the same time, what's interesting for me is in these places is seeing like how tourists think they see the city. For example, they have a picture in mind, and there's actually this I forgot how it's called, but when Japanese people go to France or Paris, it's called like the Paris syndrome or something like that. Because Japanese people, they have this image of Paris, romantic city, beautiful. Everyone drinks wine and eats baguette. But when they're in the subway, on the tube, everything is dirty and people are angry, and so for them it's like a reality shock. So I like to see that. When I see tourists, I think just tourism in general could be an interesting topic, and I think Martin Parr documented tourists a lot because you sometimes see absurd situations and moments, and tourists are often very happy and excited, and then in contrast you have the locals being grumpy and stressed, and so whenever I can I try to find some contrast, and because tourists are doing selfies, there's not much going on really in tourist places, not much variety. Every tourist place has tourists, so
Interesting.
I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. And I think it really kind of paints a picture in terms of how you see a scenario. Whereas, I think starting in street photography early on, people just try to gravitate toward crowds. Where are there people? Where are there people? And then if I just go to the crowds, then I'll get a great shot. And then you'll go there and you're like, why aren't my shots great yet? And I think it's coming back to understanding how to paint a scene, how to compose a scene. And you might find a great scene there, but looking for the right stuff. I got to move on to the next question. And listen, I'm not trying to start controversy here. I just have to ask it, so I want to frame it in the right way, because I love when you talk about the subject. But why is street photography important? Like, I know in this day and age, people get so amped up with privacy, even though in most developed countries, you're being on camera filmed all the time, unless you're in your home. But I like how you answer. But can you just share with us, why do you believe street photography is important and why we should explore it more as creatives?
For me, it's very important because like you said, we have security cameras. We're being observed all the time, right? We have the news media covering events. So what we can do is, as how do you say it? If you're not connected to an agenda, you're not connected to an organization or agency, you look at the world more objectively, or subjectively, but from your point of view.
Right.
There's no one, saying, you gotta capture this and this. So just in terms of documenting our times, I think it's very important that we keep taking photos, because if we don't do it, then we will leave it up to, the journalists or people who might want to push a certain agenda. And people are actually on the street, like locals, they see what's really happening, right? And so it's the same, when you look at war photographers, they brought back the stories, the images that we don't see in the news. So luckily, right now we have it very comfortable on the street. So there's nothing to, there's no cover up, to capture or to show. But I think it's important, because if we don't capture what's happening on the street, who will do that? The photojournalists, they're doing a job. They don't go out on the street to document, the neighbor's coffee shop and the people who live in the street.
Exactly.
But it seems like something not so important at the moment. But YouTube is now flooded with these remastered footage of in the 1800s or early 1900s, and then you see in New York or Hamburg, there's also footage of Hamburg and how people dressed and how people looked on the street, and it's a different world to us, and we might not have that if we then don't capture it without any interference or without changing the scene.
Yeah, the two things that really stand out, from what you said is, especially because I follow you on Instagram, and you'll do this once in a while where you'll share some great street photographs from like the 1900s and early on, and kind of to add to this argument where like you almost don't know the value until much far after the picture is taken, right? That someone happened to be there at this time. And while it might look like just a random photograph, like for example, Vivian Maier just going around, she wasn't even looking to be famous, but she was just grabbing these random shots, and there's a shot in Chicago, for example, of this family that's about to move. In that moment, there's probably nothing there. But when you look at it 50, 60 years later, it just tells so much more of a story, right? And again, like you said, I want to echo the same thing. I think that if you don't tell your story, you leave it to other people to tell that story. It's something I talk about often, but in this case specifically, we can't just rely on photojournalists and the professionals and, expect them to cover everything. I think, if you do have an interest in it, go out there, shoot often, and share that as much as you can, because so much of the value is after you've captured the shot, well after sometimes. Another thing I want to talk about is, you started recently publishing books and your own zines, and getting into this,
Books?
Oh, sorry, not books, not books.
Not yet.
This is me being a fan and asking you to publish a book. Is that what I'm doing right now?
Okay. If you say it, then
then boom, we'll make it happen. But
zine, I'm working on a zine, so.
Yeah, so what has that journey been? Where like you started something, you kind of had this idea, you explored it, you did it more and more and more, you fell in love with it, you developed your eye, you traveled all over, all this kind of thing, and now you're working toward the zine. What are the things that you look for to curate that zine, and what value do you want to bring to people that invest in that product of yours?
I'm only after the money. Just kidding. No, of course not. So I think the zine that will come out is a collaboration with two other photographers, one here from Hamburg, Damon Jar, and Ulysses Aoki from Tokyo.
Yeah.
So our goal is just to produce a nice zine that showcases interesting street photography that was done in Japan. So it's about Japan street photography. I might do a personal zine someday, but I don't have a big goal. I just want to share, street scenes from Japan. And I think I'm not ready yet to create a book or zine that is interesting enough, or it's not.
So I got to ask you there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got to ask you there. Problem. But me as a fan, when I look at your pictures on Instagram, it's easy for someone like me that isn't you and isn't in your head to be like, what are you talking about? You have a bunch of great pictures. Just put this in a book. What is it? What is it for you? Like, what is sort of the personal, I guess, taste or personal, I guess, requirements for you to be ready to publish that and then make it available for purchase?
I mean, a part of it is, of course, that I have my own, requirements or the things I want to reach in my photography.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything you saw until now, they are just, for me, like test shots.
Yeah.
They're like,
okay.
I'm testing out a few things. I think I'm drawn to one specific thing in photography, but when you look at my Instagram or just my YouTube videos, when I started 2017, back then I was afraid of people. I was doing hip shots. So my photos were also very different from now. And then I had a phase, where I was always close and trying to be complex like Alex Webb. Never got to that point, but I'm trying. And then, I know what I like. I did all the cliche shots. And even now I see myself doing shots that, are not that special. I'm doing that because they look interesting. But I feel like I need to work more on producing work that is more consistent and comes really from my heart,
Yeah.
I mean, it all comes from my heart because I like what I take, but I feel like it's not personal enough what I'm doing.
Right.
I think
Thank you for sharing
I'm giving. Yeah, I think most photographers struggle with being very confident with what they do, and I'm not saying I'm not confident. It's just that I know that my photos are not 100% personal all the time.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is because I'm in a similar place where I went to India for, about 3 weeks, and I was planning this out where, months in advance, I had a shot list and I'm like, these are the cities, these are the shots I'm going to get, went there, got thousands of pictures, and I'm like, I'm going to put out a book. And then after I was done the trip and I got back and I went through everything, I'm like, I could put out a book, or I can try to go again and try to get it better and try to refine it. And like, it's a thing as a photographer, as an artist, where like, if you have the luxury to do that, you will do that. You will just push it off as much as you can because you believe your best work is always ahead of you. Where, sometimes you'll be editing a picture. I don't know if you're similar, where you might spend 30, 40, 50 minutes, maybe even a couple hours on a picture, and you don't even know if it's done yet. And maybe you even fall out of love with it. And you're always thinking about the next shot, right? So that kind of leads me into my next question is, do you love a lot of your photographs, or are you kind of always thinking about the next photograph? Like when you look at your portfolio and I guess maybe your best shots, do you kind of enjoy that moment, or are you always focused on the next one?
Of course I love my photos. Who doesn't love their own photos? I of course, I'm my biggest fan, right? I should be my biggest fan, right? If I don't like what I'm doing, I mean, I have specific standards, and if I don't meet my standards, then I'm not 100% happy. But sorry, but I'm very proud of this photo. This is probably my most luckiest moment. I wouldn't say it's mostly my skill. It's just I was at the right time at the right spot, and of course, if you get a shot that you're very happy with, then celebrate yourself, no problem. But what was you were saying something in the beginning?
So I guess I want to know is like, do you spend enough time appreciating the work that you've captured, or are you thinking about the next one? And I guess a way to rephrase this is, for example, like I'll go out and take a picture, and I know that I'm happy with this picture. It's something that I'm going to publish, and if I publish it, it means I'm happy with it. But then I stop thinking about it. Once it's shared, like I don't even think about it anymore. I'm just looking at the next picture and thinking about the next one. So. What's your story and relationship in that scenario?
I mean, if you get a photo that you're very happy with, I think naturally you want more. Like you're like, oh, this is great. How can I get more of this? And then you try again, and then it might not come. A few years you might not even get anything close to it. And if you get like one good photo a year, you could spend 10, 15 years, and then you have a portfolio of 15 amazing photos. You could do an exhibition of that, and then that would be enough. But it takes sometimes that much time and devotion, and it's. I have to say one thing. Why I think I'm not ready to do a book or zine is because because I travel a lot for my other projects, I'm always a tourist or a guest in a country. So I take photos as an outsider, right? I'm not taking photos like a local photographer would do. So I feel
Okay.
guilty, not documenting places I know. Like I'm a local here in Hamburg,
Yeah.
so I'm actually thinking of forcing myself to do a project here in Hamburg, because if I don't do it here,
Yeah.
makes no sense that I do a project, and I've never been to India, but let's say I go to India.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will probably take the same photos as everyone else, going to that lake and everyone. What is this fest called? This festival with all the colors. Holy Fest? You know what I mean? Yeah, your audio's cutting off. I don't hear you anymore. I don't know if it's for your audience as well, but I think your mic disconnected.
Can you hear me now? All my audience can hear me now. Let me just go over to Skype to make sure that you can hear me. Da, 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 da. All right, here we go. So, Samuel, you should be able to
Okay.
hear me now. I
Yeah.
apologize for that. It looks like the wireless lav mic that I was using, the battery just died on it. But luckily,
Okay.
I always have a contingency plan. We have a backup. So I apologize for those
Okay.
listening on YouTube. My audio quality might go down a bit. But yeah, it's the Holi festival in India that you were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That one.
So continue. You're saying that if you go there, you might be taking the same pictures as everyone else. And
Yeah, probably, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think, there are great photographers who can capture amazing photos at any city, You have to check out Forrest Walker, for example. He
Yeah.
has this 100 city project, and he went to 100 cities.
I'm gonna write it down.
Uh,
Forrest Walker, you said?
yeah, Forest, like forest, and then Walker, like walking.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
think his website is Shooter Files.
Okay.
And I think he is about to finish his project, but he's been doing it for I don't know how many years, 5 or 6 years, but shooting every day, 100 cities, and he always gets amazing photos. And
Wow.
it's great, but even he said in an interview, he is just a guest, and it's as a local you take different photos. So
Right. We got about 5 minutes or ish left on YouTube, and then we're gonna jump on Henry's camera Instagram, or you can go to lynn.taro on Instagram and join the conversations, and you guys can ask questions. But let me try to blast these off real quick. I
yeah,
have to talk about your gear. Early on, you had the Ricoh GR1. You made a video about the X100F, and I went back and watched it again to understand why you went to the X100F initially. But
okay,
now, in the interest of time, you are with the Ricoh GR3. This is your daily driver for street photography. So tell
yep.
us, what are the the three main reasons that you choose this camera to capture your street photography?
I mean, how can you go more smaller than this, right? Like, do I have a camera in my hand? There's a clip from Henri Cartier-Bresson.
Yeah.
He's having his Leica here, and he's like, "Where's the Leica? Where's the Leica? There's the Leica," And this is the thing, This is a camera you can always put in your pocket. It's APS-C 28. 28 is my favorite focal length, so
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with shooting 28. Snap focus, haven't seen that in any camera yet. You can
Yeah.
use autofocus, but set in distance. And for street photography, that is just a killer feature. And I was never happy with digital color rendering on other cameras. On
Yeah.
this one, just the standard color profile, or the positive film that I really like.
Yeah.
Amazing colors. I think for me, I mean, it's personal preference, of course.
Yeah.
I much prefer this camera for color than all the other cameras I have,
Yeah.
except the 5D Mark I recently
I
got for
saw
fun.
that.
That is
Yeah.
also very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see how Samuel's being very, very political and very nice about it. For me, it's nice because he knows I'm a Fuji fan and all that kind of stuff. So very diplomatic,
Me
sir.
too,
Thank you.
man. Me too, man. Oops. Still shooting Fuji,
There you
but
go.
I shoot only black and white on Fuji because
Ah, okay.
I don't know why I'm I'm full of, like, how to say, I'm saturated. I've seen all the colors. I have enough.
There you go. There you go.
They're
Uh, I
great,
gotta,
but
I gotta talk to you about your live stream. So, yeah, you've been doing live stream for a while on YouTube, and you built up your whole YouTube channel. And maybe I gotta do an interview with you again, just talking about your your YouTube journey. But
okay.
lately, in the midst of this situation, you've been doing daily streams, and even though this is the last one, you've been doing it, I think, close to 2 weeks, if not more. Um,
Yeah.
just tell me, how has that been, and what have you learned from doing daily streams with you, with other photographers and other creatives?
Yeah, because I'm still in it. I don't really had the time to reflect and see what
Okay.
I've learned, but
Yeah.
so it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to give my viewers, my time and talk to them. I wanted to know, what's happening for them in their country.
Yeah.
We did like a community stream where everyone was sharing their photos and sharing their perspectives. So we had a look at that.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think streaming now, everyone is forced to stream. If you want to stay connected, then you need to, Skype or FaceTime. And I think streaming is, I know someone, a friend of mine who says streaming is the future, and I kind of agree, but I
Yeah.
still think, there's always a place for curated, edited content.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
streaming, I think it will become much more important. And in terms of what I've learned, I would say it helps you connect to your audience. Like
Yeah.
I now remember, names. I mean, of course, I remember them from my other streams as well.
Hmm.
But I get to know more people more
Yeah.
personally. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see them in person, but I remember their names, and I think for them it's also nice to always know that I'm there every day and they can ask me questions. So,
Yeah.
like you did here, for example, like you are doing here on Henry's camera store
Yeah.
stream. No, I mean, I know that you don't engage with the chat, but you could,
We'll get there. We'll get there. That's the thing is I've had to learn this whole live streaming thing in the last 8 days. So I'm
Yeah,
working
you're
my
doing a
way
good
up.
job for that. Yeah,
There you go. Samuel's seal of approval. Listen, I could ask you so many more questions, and I am, but on Instagram. We got to cut this
yeah,
stream here. We're going to continue the conversation on Henry's camera Instagram, or you can join Samuel's Instagram, lin.taro, and you guys can ask questions as well. So we're going to get started over there. Samuel, thank you so much for your time and setting this all up.
of course, of course.
Talk to you in a
Thank you
few.
for infiltrating my live stream.
No problem. No problem. This is a nice
So
surprise
we
for
do
everyone.
another one on my stream.
Done. Done.